accept now. So hello and welcome to our first methods chat in this winter term. We are very happy to have Dr. Denis Weger here today as an expert in investigating teachers' competence development with video vignettes and qualitative analysis. Denis Weger is from the University of Vienna and is currently working as a postdoc at the Language Teaching and Learning Lab. And his current research areas are teachers' professional development, individual social multilingualism, intervention research, and educational design research. Welcome, Denis. Thank you for taking your time. And I would say let's start the methods chat with a short introduction into the methodology. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Silvia. Thank you for having me. Hello, everyone. Nice to see most of you again, because most of you I already know. Nice to see you. So I've prepared like a couple of slides for the beginning, and then maybe we can discuss the methods and also talk about some questions concerning your own research or mine research or your own. So let me see. Okay, here's desktop 2. And so I guess you can see my presentation now. Yeah? Yeah. Okay. So let's start. Yeah, I would like to start with the first slide with giving a short overview on my own research, my dissertation research project, starting with the context. In Austria and in Germany as well, and in many other US OECD countries, migration-related multilingual pupils face more obstacles for their academic success because of various reasons, but one important reason is the misfit between their language use and language use at school. So my aim was, the research aim was to create an intervention in pre-service teacher education to improve educational equity in the area of language use. So I created a course with the course title Competence for Inclusive Translingual Instruction in All Subjects. I have talked about this course actually in the methods chats about educational design research, so I won't focus on the course design. Today I would like to focus on the empirical evaluation where I've used qualitative content analysis. So, but yeah, the goals of the course, just that you have it will be important to understand the results then, or also the QCA. Pre-service teachers should learn in this course to incorporate the individualistic linguistic repertoire of all students, and equally to promote their academic language skills in the language of schooling, language of instruction, language of schooling, being German in Austria. So the main question was how to design and to empirically evaluate this course. Yeah, as I said, I already talked once about the design, so now I would like to focus on the empirical evaluation. And here you have you can see one of our seminar rooms in our historical main building. Actually, that's a picture I've taken from my very first, I think, the pilot study. And there you also see the video on the wall, which I used for data collection. But I will go into detail now, talking about the research design. Yeah, I left it in German, and because I wanted to, like, talking about multilingualism, I thought it would be fine, and as almost everyone here speaks German anyway, I'm happy that I left it this way. Please focus on the aspect of the summative evaluation, because that's the part where the lower part is the empirical evaluation. That's the summative evaluation, because I wanted to see or to evaluate the impact of the course on pre-service teachers' competence development. So that's the focus here. And what were my research instruments? I used pre and post test, a questionnaire with 4 video vignettes. So vignettes are short, or video vignettes are short video clips. In my case, I used 4 video clips, and 2 of these 4 video clips were approximately 1.5 minutes long, and the 2 other ones were approximately 3 minutes long. and pre-service teachers watched these video clips and had a couple of minutes time to answer 3 questions, open-ended questions on these video clips. And these open-ended questions that were like with 3 on each video clip, the questions were the same. And the 3 questions were always please describe what you have seen concerning language use and so on. Yeah, so it was the first question was on like asking them to describe what they have seen. Then the second question was to asking them to explain teaching elements relevant to learning. Yeah, which was what they thought were relevant in this sequence concerning language and language use. And then the third one was asking them to predict the impact on students' learning processes. So it's a long story why. It's a theory based. It's based on the theory of teacher noticing. I won't go into detail here, but if there are any questions on why these questions, we can discuss it then later. So yeah, so the questionnaire was a pre-post test with a questionnaire, open-ended questions, 4 video vignettes with for each video they had to answer these 3 questions. And then I also used stimulated recall to go deeper into pre-service teachers' cognition processes, but I won't talk about this today. Yeah, because I didn't use qualitative content analysis on this data. I used qualitative content analysis on the questionnaire data. So moving on to the questionnaire data. To the questionnaire data. That's what the data looked like in the original form. So they answered like it was a pen and paper test. And then I transcribed it and I used Max Coudier for the analysis. Yeah, that's what it looked then what it looked like when I then worked with the data. Yeah, here you are the colored segments on the side are the codes that I used, and that leads to the qualitative content analysis, so QCA. And QCA is well suited for analyzing what is there and what is it like. So if you want to focus or investigate the manifest or explicit level of a data set, yeah, it's not so well suited if you are interested in the what we call in German, at least we call it latente Ebene, so the implicit level. Yeah, but many like us also I started with the QCA to investigate the explicit level and then used linguistic text analysis to go deeper into the implicit level. So you can combine these like QCA of course with other techniques. So yeah, so it's well suited. So QCA, as I said, is well suited for analyzing what is there and what is it like on a explicit level. There are various approaches, which here in these 3 cases are all Germanophone, because it's very like QCA is very, let's say, famous in the German-speaking area, less so internationally. However, it's also there are very like similar methodologies established in like Anglophone in the Anglophone research culture. So speaking about Anglophone literature, there is a book that's that was very, very helpful to me. It's a qualitative content analysis by Udo Kuckartz and Stefan Rediker. I mean, Udo Kuckartz is one of the experts on qualitative content analysis in German language. So I used in my dissertation, I used the German version of this book, but yeah, it's a very good book and also very like nice to read, which is not always the case, I think, for methods books. However, moving on to the specifics of quality of QCA, according to Kuckartz and Rediker, they have in their book they describe 3 types, and like other experts on the topic have another number of types. I find these 3 very, how to say, very yeah, it's a nice number, yeah, and they are quite useful. in many various contexts. So the first QCA is the structuring QCA, where you can structure topics in a data set. Just like finding, like you have like this data set, which is quite messy because it's it's qualitative. So you have usually a little bit of a like messy, but not in a bad way. Yeah, it's just not so structured as if you get the quantitative data. So you with the structuring QCA, you structure, for example, you structure the data set, like finding or elaborating on certain topics that are often that you think are often in the data. Then there's the evaluative QCA, where you then focus more on what is a certain aspect of the data like. And then the type building QCA. I can't talk much about this because I didn't use the third one. But there then you create, based on the structuring QCA, you create types of whatever. Yeah, types of persons, types of whatever. Yeah. So I would like to focus on these two, on the first two QCAs, because these two I used in my own research, beginning with the structuring QCA. And the structuring QCA, as I already mentioned, is focusing on what is there. So if you want to focus on what is there in my data, you could use the QCA, at least the structuring QCA, at least at the beginning. And like giving an example, my research questions that I then tried to answer with the structuring QCA were the following. I'd like to let you read them, because as research questions sometimes are, they're a little bit longer. So on the first research question here, you can see that I asked about the development of pre-service teachers noticing in the areas of description, explanation, and prediction. These categories I already had in the questionnaire. So these categories were formed by theory, or I got them from the theory, and I used them then in a first step to structure the data, the open answers of my students, to structure on a very superficial level, first as a starting point in these three categories. And I assigned these categories to certain parts of the data set. And then the second question was what topic-specific developments are evident. That was then based on the first structuring, based on the deductive assignment of the categories of the three. I then looked inductively on which topics do pre-service teachers write about and then I created inductive categories. I think in the end I had the three main categories, the deductive categories, and then I think it was then like 43 inductive categories. Yeah, and here you have the cycle, starting with number one. If you follow me here, is the initial work with the text, where you read and so on, and you get a little bit you get to know your data set, and then you start with the development of the main categories. They can be inductively or deductively created. In my case, the first categories were deductively, as I said, and I assigned them then, and I coded the data with these three categories. Then in step number 4, I developed the subcategories inductively, the topics that emerged, and so on. Yeah, I coded then the data set with the subcategories, and then I started with the analysis. That's where the Betonung sollte sein. So, okay. Just to give you an idea of what or how the results of a structuring QCA can look like. On the research question, on the description, explanation, and prediction, how it evolved or developed. It looked then like this. I won't go in. Don't have to read it. Yeah, it's the results of t-tests, pre-post, and so on, with some significances and effect sizes and so on. and because I quantified the data then. That's also QCA is also, it can also be used to quantify qualitative data, but it doesn't have to be. Yeah? But that's what I did in one part. And then on the question on the topic specific developments, pre-post there, I had then the topics and the like in using descriptive statistics, the percentages and the numbers of how often pre-service teachers wrote about a certain topic, yeah, in pre and post. That's how the results of the structure in QCA can look like in my, or do look like in my case. And then we have the, I would like to talk about the second kind of QCA, the evaluative QCA, which is suitable for looking at what is it like. Yeah, it meaning something in the data. Yeah, in my case, it was like I wanted to focus on the, no, wait, I'll show you the research question first. The research question I wanted to answer using evaluative QCA is this one here. So in this, because doing, I didn't plan this at the beginning, and actually I was really a little bit shocked also when I found out that it would be good to do this, because it was much work to do a second QCA. But doing the structuring QCA, it occurred to me that the statements of pre-service teachers, they somehow differ also in their structure from pre to post, or between pre and post. So in the pre-test they seemed rather vague, and in the post-test they were much more detailed. That was my impression. So and that was my, like, yeah, the first impression doing the structure in QCA, and that's why then the question, that's why I wanted to investigate whether or not this is really true or it's only my impression. And so I came up with these research questions, and I wanted to focus on all the statements I had coded before during the structure in QCA. I had coded with the deductive categories explanation and prediction. So I didn't look at description, but in the categories explanation and prediction, I did on these statements in these categories, I did the evaluative QCA, focusing on like if there is really a difference in their argumentative quality. So I mean the steps are quite similar. You start with initial work. Often you really start with the structure in QCA, and go then on with the evaluative QCA. You then in the second step you define the evaluative categories. In my case, I had three. I defined three categories, which were like unclear, vague, and differentiated. So I had three quality dimensions for each statement. Yeah, and then I coded these statements. And just to give you an impression of these statements, I brought you some results of this QCA, and here is one unclear prediction. If you could read this statement, please. So I had the video, just to give you a little bit of context. There was the video where there were like two students speaking in a group work. They were speaking in German and Russian to understand or to make meaning of a text in German. So they really used their linguistic repertoire to make meaning and to understand the German input text better. And in the pretest, this statement here was like on the question in the pretest on the question, what do you think is the influence on students' learning processes of this multilingual language use? One student wrote this statement that the appreciation of multilingualism has a positive effect on the use of other languages. So there is not defined what is the positive effect, and what is the appreciation in this context. So it's quite vague. I would say, or quite unclear. On the other side, the differentiated prediction would be this on the same video. If you could read this statement, please. Yeah, I think you can see that there is a difference in explicitness and also argumentative structure, that it's because they are here in this case. I mean, I could talk ages about these categories because it was so much work to form them. But yeah, here it's just the argumentation is better because they give examples and they link the examples also with the consequences they think this situation has on students' learning. So, and yeah, and the result as presented in my dissertation, it looks then like this from pre to post, that the differentiated predictions really increased, the unclear and the vague predictions decreased significantly. And so this way I found out that my first impression really also could be, or that it could be shown that this wasn't only my impression, but it really somehow was a process that really occurred. Yeah, and that's actually my last slide. In case you want to, we can discuss it now. If you want to read a little bit more about my approach, that's my dissertation. It was published this year, open access, so you can just download it for free, funded by the Austrian Science Fund. And that would be all for now. So I stopped sharing.
Thank you very much for your introduction. Very exciting methodology. Now we have plenty of time to discuss questions, ideas, share our own experience. Feel free to ask or write down questions in the chat. Otherwise, maybe I start with a question. The first, I had so many questions in my mind, very exciting. Maybe the first question was, how did you differentiate between the dimensions? For example, in the structural QCA, you differentiated between the three dimensions, describing, explaining, and predicting.
Yes.
Did you also had cases where statements overlap in
No.
dimensions? No? Okay.
No, in the sorry, in the well, sorry. No, please finish your question. Sorry.
No, this was the question. So how did you, what did you do if they would overlap?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good question because it was very messy actually. I mean, depending on what do you mean overlap? Like, well, like that in one statement there could be more categories, or that one
Yeah.
Yeah,
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 exactly.
that was definitely the case. Just wait, I just look for my coding manual because there I can explain it on, like, based on this. Let me just Weger, just because it's also online, I can also give you the link. Yeah, here it is. So in case you're interested in my, I will share the link, the screen to explain this, but in case you are interested in my coding manual, you can find it also here. But so let me see. And it's in German, but it's for most here, no problem. So, and otherwise you can translate it using DeepL. I would say, so here we go. The coding manual, so for the structuring QCA, I defined, so I started with the definition of the three main categories that I took, like describing, explaining, and predicting. That, like, the categories themselves I took from literature. Yeah, but the definition on a linguistic basis I had to come up myself then, because that's something that in the literature, in my experience, isn't done so well, I would say. So I came up with, like, linguistic markers that would define an explanation. For example, certain linguistic structures, like using because or to and so on. Yeah, or also here for like predictions using future tense and other things. That's how I defined them. And also then giving some examples for each category. And then I started coding. But as you can see here, blue is always the first, like the description, and red is prediction. So often and that here is one statement, this here. Yeah. So in this statement, and that's something that occurred very often, that students or pre-service teachers, they wrote something and like they described something, and then in the same, like following the description, they immediately went on to the prediction, because which is quite natural process actually, because to in an argumentation, if you want to argument or to make a point about a prediction you make, you have you don't have to, but to have it, if you want to make it convincing, then you have to start with the description. What do you see and why, and to then going on to why you think the what this, or what it leads to, what you describe. So that's how the things overlap. And it was then, I think I have also longer, yeah, and there were many, and also of course at the beginning I was very naive, because I had the questions on describe, explain, and predict. And at the beginning, I expected them to describe it where I asked them to describe, then to predict, that to explain where I asked them to explain, and to predict where I asked them to predict. But of course, they didn't. They described everywhere. They predicted everywhere. Yeah, because it was the questions were open, so they could write what wherever they wanted. So, and that's why that was so many overlaps.
Okay.
But the category themselves, they were mutually exclusive. So
Okay, so there was no statement coded as a description and explanation as well. You could differentiate in one statement. You differentiated between description as well as.
yeah, there was one statement, because I always coded the segment I coded was always the at least a sentence or maybe a paragraph. It depended on where. I always, like, I tried to, when I put the data into Max Coutier, I tried to rebuild their layout. So I also tried to make the new paragraphs where I thought they made the paragraphs in their writing. And one segment in my data was always one paragraph, which could have been one sentence or more sentences.
Okay.
And in this coding segment, there could have been actually there could have been all categories. Sorry, the other one, from the evaluative, they were mutually exclusive. These weren't. Sorry, structure and QC, these three categories were not exclusive. No. So one statement could have been coded with all three categories.
Okay.
Depending on what they wrote in the statements.
Yeah. That's a good solution, to break up the boundaries.
Yeah, and then maybe because I have the coding manual already open, just to give you an impression, it's also in my dissertation in a little bit of a nicer layout, but that here, that's how my final category system looked like here, with the red codes, like the K1 was for the description, and then I had some, like, on a second level, some subcodes, and then here these were the inductive formed categories. And then it goes on. As you can see, there are quite a lot of categories here. That's then the explanation. Here's where explanation begins, and then here prediction. So quite a lot of categories. And then the description of the categories goes on and on and on and on, as you can see here. Because then I had to I did also, it was lots of work, because I had an intercoder in. I wanted to check for intercoder reliability, which in the end was good, but it was a lot of work to get there, because I had to define the categories very well, and I had to find anchor examples, and also examples to show which wouldn't fit into this category. So, and then then I trained an intercoder, and she coded I don't know how much of the data, I think 10%, 15% or so, to then calculate the intercoder agreement. And then as I've seen that the intercoder agreement was good, I coded the rest on my own. Yeah, because that was important to me to have this intercoder reliability, because I then wanted to go on using statistics, which because that's why I wanted to have this reliability.
Thank you very much. Yeah, this was actually my second question, how you did overcome that limitation for such
Yeah, and this was a huge thing. And then, yeah, wait, I share my screen again. On the other, wait, that's all the categories from the extraction QCA. So, and then it's still blah blah blah. So quite a lot of pages. And just as a tip, maybe if you in Max QDA you can write if using I would always use for QCA, always use a software like, for example, Max QDA, because there you can write memos, and then you can export the memos as a coding manual. So, and that's what I did here. That's also it comes then with a nice layout and so on. And then you can, because then you can, like in Max QDA, analyzing your data, you can simultaneously elaborate on your category descriptions, and then in the end or in between export these descriptions as a coding manual. So, but what I wanted to come to is the evaluative QCA. With there, I also then created some categories, and in the end, I had, once they were established, the categories, they are also quite wordy. Was quite a lot of work to come up with them, but that's something I'm also quite proud of, because this category structure, like the categories of the evaluative QC, they have already been used by other researchers, which is quite nice, I think. But then I came up with this decision tree to help my intercoder in, because with the evaluative QSA, we really, like she and I, we really coded the complete data set and discussed each statement where we disagreed. So that was also a lot of work, but it paid off. That was in the end, this was one of my, I personally think that was one of my most interesting results that I didn't think of at the beginning.
Yeah. Thank you. Are there other questions?
May I ask, is anyone planning or already using qualitative content analysis, or planning on using? Diana is not sure. Okay, Carola. But maybe, I mean, would you like to would you like to discuss your research questions, and then we can discuss whether or not it's suitable, or don't have to?
Maybe that's my problem is that my master theme is the methodology per se, and I don't know which methodology I have to use to build a methodology, with these houses.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
That's the problem. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, okay. Because help me out, because you try to you have these like houses where people color or paint the linguistic worlds.
Yes, like the Brigitta Busch Sprachenportrait, but with houses, linguistic living spaces.
Yeah, but what would your data be then?
I'm planning to do the methodology with students from a gymnasium in Vienna.
Yeah.
So the same as Brigitta Busch, the sensibilization with what's your linguistic repertoire and how multilingualism play a role in your daily life and so on. And please show me that graphic in this house on this space. You can also turn off the page and draw whatever you want. But show me your linguistic space and how your languages are have a function and are interacting with the society.
Yeah, but your research question then would be to see whether or not this method of linguistic living spaces is suitable.
Yes, suitable, and how repercussion could have in the linguistic, also in language teaching for a second language or foreign languages.
Which potential it could have.
Yeah, the potential, because if you know or see the function that these languages have in your daily life, perhaps the motivation to learn them will increase.
Yeah.
That the children says, oh yeah, I need German because blah blah blah, and then are more motivated. I don't know.
Yeah, but from simply using, but from simply using this like data, this data collect, what is it? What is
Set.
it? Data collection technique? No, but from simply asking them to draw it,
Mm-hmm.
you won't get the answer on this question, will you?
No. That I want to do a pre-interview and after interview.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Okay, and yeah, but in the interviews, okay. But in the interviews, from the interviews, you would like to extract how they think the potential, or what would you like to extract from the interviews?
Yeah, if change their perspective for the language that they are learning in the school. That's why I wanted to do in the school, and the teacher that are helping me is a art teacher and Spanish teacher. Spanish, of course, as foreign language.
Yeah, but and then the next question for me would be: okay, from these interviews, you would like to answer which potential they see? No, what changed in their
Perspective.
their perspective?
Yeah, for the language that they are learning. If they are seeing functions or other uses for the language in their daily lives that they can imagine, or they are not aware, or that they were not aware.
Yeah, because okay, so that would be like if they mention other functions of languages and so on, like mentioning, that would be on a explicit level.
Yes.
So in this case, I think if it's about, I mean, the question I would ask then is like what I'm looking for in my data, or to answer my question, should I focus on the explicit level, what people say? Yeah, then a QCA would be suitable. Yeah, or at least for a start, structuring what they say, and then once you during your QCA, if you see that okay, there is something behind what they say, yeah, on a latent Ebene, then you could go on using something else.
Yes, I think the interesting part is also that you have a graphic and then in the interview, and then you can compare what are they saying and what are they showing graphic. So
yeah, because in this case, I think that at least as a starting point, QCA could be suitable.
Yeah,
Maybe.
I think so too. That's why I'm here today.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
But
yeah.
I'm learning now too.
Yeah.
Trying to make sense. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice. Any other questions? Or would someone else want to share their research question? Or if they think it's useful? Because may I ask, Pavla, you have conducted interviews, haven't you?
Yes, I had interviews.
And how do you analyze them?
I will be analyzed in the future.
Yeah, and how?
Yes. Some qualitative analysis.
Okay.
And I don't know which type I have chosen.
Okay, so you plan to use qualitative content analysis?
Yes.
Oh, really? Okay. Okay. And what are your research questions?
How teachers approach to pupils with heterogeneous language repertoire.
Okay. Yeah, I see. Yeah, yeah, maybe then. Yeah, like what they report on how they approach.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, yeah. Then also, I think a structuring it could be a good start. Structuring QCA, maybe. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Any other?
Maybe I have another question. Because of the effectiveness of the intervention, did I understand it right that you measured the effectiveness based on the increase of the detailness of the statements, right?
No, I did it. Yep. Yes. But also,
Okay.
I measured the effectiveness, or the influence, let's say, the influence of the course based on various, as a couple of things. But one was the increase in the number of statements in general in the categories, in the three main categories. And there, especially in description and prediction, there was a highly significant increase with a strong effect based on t-tests with matched pairs. Then that was only like in like the number. Yeah, was there an increase? Did they see more at the end? Yeah. Did they notice more? And then the second one, or another one, the second one was the quality in their yeah, that was what you mentioned, the quality in their statements, in how they formulated them. There also was, especially in the prediction statements, was also a significant increase in differentiated statements. And that I interpreted as how do you call it, Vernetzung of knowledge, that they like got like it's integrated. Yeah, that the knowledge was deeper integrated in their knowledge systems. Yeah. Like that, not only like the first, the increase in statements was, for me, was an indicator of an increase of knowledge. And the increase in the quality of the statements, for me, was for me it was an indicator for the stronger integration of this knowledge into the knowledge systems. So there was an increase and better integration, according to my interpretation, of course. And then a third point I didn't really focus on now were these topic specific developments. Where I then focused on like the like descriptive statistics, where I looked at like how many statements do I have on this topic at the beginning, and how many on this topic, and then I compared it a little bit on the topics that were relevant for the course, and then based on this I got some interpretation out of it. Yeah, because if the seminar really had a focus on topic A, and there was an increase in topic A, then I also said, okay, this might have been influenced by the course.
Okay.
Yeah, but I didn't have a control group, so as it was a design research project, so it has its limitations, of course. But, at least theoretically, I think using teacher noticing and so on, it's theoretically very sound. And also with the intercoder reliability things, it's quite okay.
Did you have the feeling that the videos were easy to notice, or did you got a feedback from the students about the videos, because as you used video vignettes?
Yeah, I actually, two of these videos I use in another project, still using them. Easy to notice. For some, yes, for some, no. And really depending, that's the very fascinating thing, that depending on what they know, and also a little bit of what their beliefs are, they notice it, especially, no, well, as Aldin already said before we started, maybe they are not influenced by their beliefs on what they see, but certainly according to my data on how they interpret then the situations. Yeah, because I'm currently working on a project on language biographical influences on teacher noticing, so biography and teacher noticing, and there I think I can show that, for example, biography has an influence on the interpretation of certain aspects. But it's another story. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, for me, QCA maybe one last thing, at least from my side. I mean, QCA is at least in the German or in the research that I can overlook a little bit, especially in the German-speaking research. There is like QCA is very, very often used, which is, I think, okay, because it's maybe it's a little bit easier to step in or to get acquainted with the approach than maybe other things that really immediately go to the latent dimension. Yeah. So and I think it's a legit methodology if it fits to the research question. Sometimes, but one should always consider that it's mostly tackling the explicit, so the explicit level. And if you want to go deeper, because your research question really is about what they believe, what they think, what their whatever, don't know, yeah, implicit beliefs are, then you have to at least use an additional one or a totally other one. Yeah. But because sometimes I get the impression that people think that but QCA isn't easy. Yeah, it's not that it's so easy or simple, because sometimes I get a little bit the impression that people think, okay, everyone can do a QCA, and maybe everyone can do a QCA, but not a good one then in the end. But because if you do a good QCA, it's really a lot of work. And yeah,
I can imagine, yeah, that the manual and the codebook has a lot of effort to do when you do a quick QCA.
Yeah. Because I think it took me almost a year to come up with the codebook or so. I mean, I also had to do other things in this year, but still, yeah.
Do you have other questions from the audience? So if there aren't questions now, I think the time is also moving on. Maybe so then let's finish the methods chat here. I think you all have Denis' email address, I guess, and I will provide your email address for other people that maybe watch the YouTube video.
So here I post a link in the chat to my dissertation, and here in the chat again is my email address. Right. Yeah. And please feel free to reach out. I'm very happy to help because many people helped me, so I'm very happy to give something back.
Thank you very much. Okay, so thank you very much for sharing your expertise and your experience. It was an interesting presentation, interesting discussion. Gave us great insight into the method. We wish you all the best for your future research. I'm happy to read more about your research. And that's all for now. See you in the next methods chat, hopefully, and have a nice week and happy holidays as well in advance. Thank you very much for coming and see you soon.
Bye. Tschüss.
Mhm.
Danke.
Ciao. Thank you.